I started out in a small town out in Spencer, Mass. I was so new to the industry at the time, the local people didn't know what a nurseryman was. So that's how far it's come. And now the yellow pages are full.
Look at the list of past presidents, the people that have come before me, or even some of the people that have come after me, I see some incredible names in this industry and some people that have just done incredible things. So it's a little daunting to know that I served in those same positions and tried to do my absolute best to make sure that I could fill those shoes.
Well, I loved my work. Like I used to tell people, I don't care whether I'm going to work or whether I'm going skiing or swimming or whatever, because I loved what I was doing. Makes quite a difference.
Definitely helped my career working around professionals like this, and this association is loaded with great nursery entrepreneurs and landscape contractors and designers and so on. So it's definitely helped me as far as business goes, and even in my personal life, just being around professional, nice people like this in the ag industry is a tremendous benefit.
We're a small industry that needs each other, that's battered about the edges at the moment, and MNLA has helped that a lot. On a personal level, I have some very, especially where I've been in the industry so long, I have some great friends that I have made through association work. Very, very good friends, a lot of great times that, make the tough times easier and make the great times more fun.
The camaraderie, the networking, but more importantly, the education and the knowledge and respect of everybody involved in this association.
When we're young and we're concerned about just working, one doesn't think about joining an organization. However, it's the best thing I ever did. It made me a better person, a better citizen. I am so pleased and proud that I have served as one of their presidents. It just broadened my horizons because you learn so much, you meet so many wonderful people, you share stories and experiences with these individuals. It just makes you a better business person, really.
There were lots of challenges early on because we were a very small industry, and people didn't pay much attention to us at the State House. But luckily, through lots of prodding and support of the legislature, we did make some inroads, and now they pay attention to us much more than they did.
Back in the early days, we used to work together. We used to actually talk to each other a lot on where to buy plant material and where the best plant material was, so that we could, stock the best and the more unusual plants too.
That third generation and even fourth generation for a lot of companies now are really coming into ownership and active within the industry and the associations. So we're seeing a lot more of those people right now. The industry's changed because consumer demand has changed, from everything from organics to technology to the way we communicate with our customers to what our customers are asking us for. So yeah, it's changed a lot. It is not my grandfather's industry anymore.
We are the strongest association. I've been involved with most of them. I really feel that we are the strongest, and it's because of the mentalities and the individuals and the strength of the knowledge and respect that these people in this room today show, and I think it will maintain itself for the rest of our living days.
like to welcome you to the 100th anniversary celebration and past President's Luncheon. And it's really heartwarming to see so many of you here today.
We were going to ask our past presidents to come up by decade and have an informal Oprah-style discussion on our white couch. I don't know what that means. And it's a little bit unscripted, so we don't know what's going to happen. And without further ado, I want to introduce our Master of Ceremonies. So if I'm Ed McMahon, you know who this guy is. So let me start by saying, here's Jimmy. This is Mr. Jim Conley.
How y'all doing? Can you hear me? Michelle asked me to wear this, and I do everything that Michelle asked me to do. Okay? So, you like the sweater? Thank you. Merry Christmas to everybody, and happy holidays. Michelle, how do you turn this thing off? It's just like you. It's just like you. So, everybody, this is Phil Boucher. He is the current chair of the History Committee.
About 1925 or in the 20s, there was a big interest in educating nursery and horticultural people in the land-grant colleges. And that is the time in which Mass Nursery Association joined AAN, the big brother of all nursery associations. And that was part of this emphasis of bringing education into both for the benefit of our industry and into the college stream and occupations.
Basically, what's happened during this decade ties into what the nursery industry has been doing as well. Research and innovation, tissue culture was becoming very important at that point. Increased production in containers. Back before the 70s, there wasn't much container production going on. Now it's what? 75–80% of nursery production, and a very big concern about water supply and quality.
I look at the association somewhat in a different way, more of the camaraderie of it, of what's happening today. Just the number of people I haven't seen for a while and talked to, and the different things that come out a little bit, like one of the big boxes this past weekend said they were going to give up selling the Christmas trees. They still had 150 left. Then they had them on consignment, as they always do anyway, and they told the grower to come and pick them up. I mean, hey, I'm glad we got competition like that. I was out in the trees when it was cold, and she says, "Where were the poinsettias you got sale for $5? I said, "Well, madam, they're in the greenhouse where they should be. Not out in the Christmas trees." I didn't say that. That was my thoughts. You gotta have some of those in this business, right?
Paul wanted to talk for about an hour and a half. We told him it could only be about 5 minutes, so.
In the 80s, really we expanded our products line. We changed our labeling, as Bob informed me, and he would know because he was one of our largest buyers, grass seed. So grass seed was added to our product line in the 80s. It would be remiss of me not to mention one of my mentors, Henry Fowler. He had just the inspiration, the dedication, and the support for those of us that really wanted to pursue this. And frankly, I really feel that this organization has offered so much to the industry that it just goes without saying.
I need to tell a story about how this whole thing came about with our new executive director. In 1991, I was asked to be the chair of a search committee for a change. I would call us the decade of change. We voted John in unanimously. That was in 92 that John came on board. 91 is when we had the decision-making process. Well, we had a good year the first year or so. And then I'm invited up to UMass Amherst with Kathy Carroll and Cooperative Extension to sit in the president's box for a UMass basketball game. Well, on the way up, I'm driving with Mr. Bragg, and he said, "Well, we're approaching Amherst, and I said, this is great, we're going back to my old school, great. And he says, I have something to tell you. And he turned to me in the car and said, I'm moving to Owl's Head, but I've got a game plan. And I'm like, we just hired you. He said, but I have a game plan. Subsequently, I don't even remember who won that game because I'm sitting there saying, what are we going to do? The game plan was Reno. And what you see in this room and through the years, my hat's off to you. You know how I feel about you.
I just want to make one brief comment while I have the microphone, and that is, as I look around this room, I see many, many friends, people who I feel very close to. In addition to that, I see many, many mentors, people that I've learned so much from. You've all been so instrumental in not only telling me and teaching me how to run my business, but also how to run my life. You're people with a standard of living, of how you live your life day to day, that's worth watching, and I have learned a lot from all of you. And I just want to thank you for that, because I've always felt that if I could give as much back to this organization as I got, I'd be doing pretty well, and it's been quite an honor. Thank you.
In our state, being much smaller than other states with the Nursery Landscape Association, came up with the most money to start the Lighthouse Fund to be connected to the American Nursery and Landscape Association Lighthouse Initiative. And we were at the convention, and another state came to the floor and said, we're gonna match Massachusetts. And right at that moment, our executive director got up and walked right down the center of that aisle with a single dollar bill waving in her hand, and she said, nobody beats Massachusetts. And we did.
We have attributed our 95 years of being a profitable company, almost profitable this year, but that to the fact that we've been association active and that we've been involved in associations have been our resource. And I would quickly like to echo some of the things that Jim has said, because John Bragg and I spent a great deal of time together when he was a lobbyist. And we would head off to Boston, and all the kids would stand out looking at this guy on the porch who would come pick me up because I wouldn't drive into Boston, and to give testimony at whatever issue it was that Massachusetts was was trying to do us in at the time. And so it was, from this board that my passion has always been, and as well as the person beside me, legislative issues. And when Rena came on board and also with Henry Gillette's tutelage, we're nationally recognized. Massachusetts is nationally recognized because of Rena and John and Henry for what we do and how active we are. But Tom and I don't know how many times we were Mutt and Jeff at the State House on either zoning or a taxation issue, and we decide on the way in who's going to be the good cop and who's going to be the bad cop. And I always get to be the bad cop because he looks like one.
I'm going to tell you a story that has to do with MNLA and being humiliated by Barney Frank. Henry had decided, I think it was probably 15 years ago, that the original guest worker program was being discussed or bantied about in Washington. And because Barney was involved in it and we were from Massachusetts, Henry decided that it would be good if we sent a little group over to Barney's office to make nice with Barney. So the group consisted of me, Pat, and Bonnie and Wayne Mezet. And we all went over and we sat down, and they somehow decided that I was going to be the one to talk first. So I started in saying that, Henry Gillette and Barney had served in the legislature in Boston together, and Henry wanted to say hello, and Barney stopped me in the middle of my sentence and said, "Stop wasting my time. What do you want?" And most of you know I like to talk, but I didn't know what the hell to say. So I think I gave the mic to Bonnie, and Bonnie and Pat kind of handled Barney just perfectly. And we talked about it. He didn't agree with us, but we talked about it for a few minutes. But the funniest part of this whole thing is now I live in Newton, and Barney's my representative. So I'm now one of his constituents. And also, when he did that to me, I was pretty sure I was the only Democrat in the room. I think my 3 colleagues were all Republicans. But that was probably my favorite moment of working with the MNLA Legislative Committee.
This decade brought a lot of different perspectives to the president's seat. We had 2 landscape contractors, we had a turf farmer from the western part of the state, we had 2 retail garden center owners, and 2 came from the wholesale nursery side. So a lot of different views brought to the table. The main couple topics that were consistent almost through the whole decade was, of course, invasive plants and money. We had money to spend, and then towards the end of the decade, Tom was faced with some, state budget issues, no money. But I'm going to start with a quick story from Bonnie's term as president in 2001. She was unavailable to attend the MNLA legislative conference in Washington, D.C. that year, and me being the newbie was asked to go down there, represent the board, and kind of get a schooling from the political savvy veterans from Massachusetts, Wayne Mezit and Tom Strangfeld and Rena. So off we went down to Washington, D.C. In the fall on 9/11. We were all in a meeting that was probably started an hour before the first plane crash, and we were all getting prepped to go to the Capitol to speak to our representatives and senators, and the speaker was interrupted by Bob Dolboy from MNLA asking for a moment of silence as for victims of a plane crash that had crashed into the World Trade Center. And we did that, and shortly later he was back again, stating that there was a second plane crash and now the Pentagon was on fire. And with that, the room emptied. Everybody scurried to local television sets. The conference informally ended abruptly, and we went back and watched TV and saw all the sights and sounds of Washington, D.C., which was sirens from all day long, police and fire sirens. We saw military vehicles. We later in the day went for a walk and saw armed people all over the inner belt of Washington, and it was very, very crazy experience. Whenever I'm asked if I was ever scared, I always say no, but I do recall Rena, being Rena, on her cell phone already checking flights to see if we can get out of there, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way in hell I'm getting on a plane right now. But she was calling home to Scott, who was fueling up the extraction vehicle, which was her minivan at the time, to come and get us, and she did. So we left Washington. We saw the Pentagon burning, and driving up 95, we saw the Twin Towers, what was left of them, burning off in the distance, and it was a very surreal feeling. But to this day, I'll always remember the education and comfort that my MNLA colleagues gave me in that little event.
The one thing I learned today, which thrills me, is that I was part of the most memorable moment for Tom Strangfeld. As a Republican, I'm thrilled to hear that I was part of your Democratic memorable moment. And I'm going to yield my time to the rest of the group.
To what was the only other D in the room,
Time's
right,
up.
Tom? Oh, nice. Yeah, anyone who invited me up here and gave me the microphone should have known better. Jeff, thank you. Phil, I was looking at your Panic of 1893, Panic of 1907, and I thought how ironic that we get to represent the poop storm that was 2008, 2009, and continues to be ongoing. I wish I had a better word for it, but we do represent a group of leaders that was able to see MNLA through what I think history will show to be the strongest point of our industry, through the housing boom to the darkest point in our industry, which has really been the last 3 years. And I think for all of us, the strength has been in remembering that ultimately every decision that we made while we were in that boardroom went down to, is this a resource for success? And the challenges that we faced, which were both what to do with all the money or what to do with what ended up being absolutely no money, was always a decision of how do we help the members succeed. And if nothing else, out of the 10 years or so that we represent, that's probably the part that I am proudest to have represented, is to have been at a table where every single decision, every single topic, literally that yardstick came out and it said, we said, is this a resource for the success of our members? And I have been very fortunate, having left this group, to have gone on to some national groups, and I will tell you, there's no training like MNLA. It's just been truly exceptional to have worked with Rena and some of the other people sitting here, or sitting at my table and then following me. And when I took over, John LeBeau was coming out of the board, and his very last, I remember this distinctly, the last thing that John said is he was literally walking out the door of our boardroom. He turned around and he looked at us and he said, "Don't spend any money." And those were the good years. And then Jeff Willman, who I followed, Jeff had probably the most profound advice for me. Jeff's advice was, don't let them down. And that is, don't let them down. And he was specifically talking about the history of past presidents, the respect and the integrity that goes into the position, and for all the past presidents and really all the volunteers in this room today. I want you to know how impactful those words were to me, to not let you down during my term. So that's all.
It's kind of scary because I must have been really young when I got into the nursery business, because I know all these old people that they're all talking about. But the nursery business, since I've been in it, has changed tremendously. And so has this association. I mean, the nursery industry took off in the early 70s, middle 70s, and things changed so much. I remember when we shifted plant material from one container to another, we had to have can cutters because there's no such thing as a plastic container. So, wow, okay, that's kind of novel. But it also, this organization has gone from a bunch of farmers to very, very professional group of individuals. Not to say that the farmers weren't professional, but now they're organized. It's a power to be reckoned with. And there have been some excellent and outstanding individuals along the way who have contributed to making what it is today. And yes, Debbie Fanning, John Bragg, Rena, all done a tremendous job. And as I recall, when I was president, I had to do very little because, and I mean that literally, because Rena would do it all. John was doing it all. And, you know, you work your way up to the ranks and you work hard to get there. Once you get there as president, it's pretty easy after that. So for me, it was somewhat non-eventful. I'm sorry to say that. Some great memories, but the board was very strong and very good at what they did, and I'm very thankful for that.
To continue on what Jim was saying, my tenure was Rena's contract year. And the strength of MNLA is their management team. And during my tenure, we signed them to a 5-year agreement, so they're ours till 2015. So.
I can attest probably the most memorable things about MNLA is fellowship. It's meeting fellow directors and committee members before meetings and after meetings, talking about how your business is going and what's going on in our industry. And to me, that was probably the greatest achievement of joining this association, was fellowship and learning about our industry. I can remember the first person that asked me to get involved in the MNLA, and that was Randy Wright. And I remember he cornered me in somewhere, I think it was one of the nationals or the regional shows, to become a committee member on the education committee, and from there moving up. And you talk about some of the great people in this industry. Our business is out west in Chicopee, and the first nurseryman I ever met was Charlie Godin, and that was back in probably 1976, 1977. And I remember meeting Charlie at Adams Nursery. And Charlie, those of you who knew him, with his deep voice, and he always had a shirt and tie on and a coat.
And I found that very interesting at that time, and meeting people like Jim Stewart, who was out in Turners Falls, who was a big contractor at that time. And you know, that's what I got out of this industry, was meeting all the great people and the fellowship and the education from meeting all those people.
Moving forward, the board is currently involved with so many things to help our organization, but we need some more youth. We need some more energy. All of the people you saw here started somewhere, and a lot of that information that your members of your teams back home have could help our industry twofold.